Howdy, today we'll be talking about bee agriculture and how bees detoxify nectar. Let's first talk about the honey. As we know, honey is rich in carbohydrates and contains small amounts of proteins, vitamins, minerals, and antitoxins. Many animals, including mammals, birds, insects, and even some reptiles, rely on honey as a source of nutrients. For example, bears consume large quantities of honey to build up fat reserves before hibernation, or even with humans using the honey's potential health benefits, such as antimicrobial properties to soothe sore throats and coughs. Now let's get into the honey making timeline. Now, when honey making is made, the female worker bees will go out to get some nectar from the flowers. Those are then taken in and taken to the hive, where they will start to put it into the honeycombs and start fanning them in order to dehydrate them and make that honey. As we know, though, bees have natural mechanisms to detoxify the nectar before storing it as honey. When foraging for nectar, bees might come across nectar sources that contain small amounts of toxins or chemicals. To ensure the quality of their stored food, bees have a multi-step process to detoxify the nectar before converting it into honey. The first step is the detoxification method, where a bee's enzyme-rich saliva takes that nectar and mixes it with their saliva in their stomach. Then that saliva is broken down from those potential toxins or substance that could be harmful. Once back at the hive, the bees regurgitate that nectar into honeycomb cells. At this point, the bees continue to add an enzyme called glucose oxidase to the nectar. Glucose oxidase produced by the bees themselves, converts the glucose in the nectar into glauconic acid and hydrogen peroxide. That hydrogen peroxide becomes an antimicrobial property that allows the inhibitants of bacteria or fungi to be present in the nectar. Additionally, the bee will fan the honeycombs in order to create that airflow and help evaporate the water from the nectar. This reduction in water content further inhibits the growth of microorganisms as they require moisture to thrive. As a result of this evaporation process, the nectar undergoes chemical changes and becomes concentrated, transforming the honey into the final product that we know, with having low water content and higher acidity level, making it an hospitable environment for microorganisms to survive and grow, but a great source of nutrients for anyone or any animal that uses that honey. On top of that, it also ensures the honey having that purity and long-term storage for the bees and any animal that uses the honey. Now let's go into what happens if that honey does get contaminated. It's important to know that bees' behavior can vary depending on the type of level of toxicity that they encounter. Their ability to adapt and respond is remarkable, but severe or prolonged exposure to toxic honey can still have detrimental effects on the colony's health and survival. If the honey in a bee colony gets contaminated or toxic, the bees would typically recognize the issue and take specific actions to protect themselves. Here are some ways that they do so. They use avoidance, removal, dilution, and self-medication. Let's start off with the first one, avoidance. Bees have a sophisticated sense of smell and taste, so they can detect the presence of toxins in their honey. If they detect something harmful, they may avoid consuming it, therefore seeking out other sources of nectar and pollen. Then you have removal. If there is a chance that the bees identify contaminated honey cells they then will remove or seal them off from the rest of the hive. This behavior is called capping, where they seal off the cells containing inappropriate or spoiled honey. Then, if that doesn't help, there's dilution. Those cases, bees might dilute the toxic honey by adding more new nectar or regurgitating that honey into a contaminated cell. By diluting the toxin, they reduce its harmful effects. And if the last resort will be self-medication. Bees have been observed collecting plant resins, propolis, which possess antimicrobial properties in order to help contain that pathogens And these propolis will protect the hive and minimize the impact of those toxins. Now, propolis is seen more like earwax in a sense, but instead it's like beeswax. It helps contain all the toxins and horrible things that should not be there. Now you get to see bees at work. On the left, you have the bees who are collecting that pollen and nectar in order to put it in those honeycombs and make honey. They will take it from the flowers, take it to their hive, and then to those honeycombs. Over here, you have the way that it's separated. When a hive is separated, you have a section for honey, a section for pollen, and a section for the larvae, whether it's being put in there or being sealed after that they put it in there. On your right, you have the guard bees that make sure that intoxicated things that will come into the hive are limited. And on your right, and on your other side, you'll also see the bees, how they will be flying into those hives, straight and centered. Now over here, you have the ways they will protect the honey from toxins and contaminations. On your left, you have the bees diluting that contaminated honey from the toxins and contaminations it might have. On the middle, you have that propolis with that kind of beeswax in order to keep things safe. And on your right, you have that capping method where they make capping areas in order to tell all the bees, keep out, this is not to be interacted with. And that should be all. Thank you for watching.